The courts know that domestic violence is reported rampantly during high conflict divorces, and that these reports are 90% false. But the courts do nothing about it. Is this because family court doesn't have the laws to protect these people? Or is it because family court doesn't want to stop it? Because they know it's a money maker. They know that with every false report means a bigger, longer case, which means more money for them, more money for the attorneys, more money for the agencies, and more money from anybody else who is involved in the case. I'm Joan Cloth Zainard. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called PASS Intervention. It stands for Parental Alienation, Support, and Intervention. I'm also the author of a book called Where Did I Go Wrong? How Did I Miss the Signs? Dealing with hostile parenting and parental alienation. Often during a high conflict divorce, we see a preponderance of false allegations of abuse. It should not be allowed. There needs to be a penalty when an allegation is proven false. False allegation of abuse is a tactic used by parents, even by attorneys and agencies, to gain control. The courts know this. In fact, Family Court Services has admitted to me that 90% of the allegations of abuse during a divorce case are false. One of the problems with ex parte hearings is that when it is found to be false, there are no ramifications, there are no penalties, there are no consequences, there are no sanctions against the person who has defamed and slandered the other parent. Until the family courts put their foot down and stop the abuse of ex parte hearings and false allegations of abuse, we will continue to have problems. Domestic violence comes in many forms. It is not just physical. It is not just sexual. It can be verbal. Verbal leads to psychological abuse. All of that is domestic violence. 99% of the time, the accusations are being made by the mother against the father. Domestic violence has no split where it's all women being abused and not the men. In reality, it is a 50-50. Women abuse men as much as men abuse women. It is equal down the middle. What's not equal is the publication and the laws. When you read in the newspaper, 90% of the cases you read are always about the man abusing the women. That's not true. But we never read about those in the paper. And then when we create our laws, they're not created to protect all genders and all races. They're only meant to protect women and children. Men often do not report domestic violence. So this actually causes our statistics to be skewed. They're afraid of the system because they know if they claim they've been abused, that it will be countered and the system is going to fail and accuse them of being the abuser instead. In my hand I have a report that is made up from the Dutchess County Legislative Citizens Advisory Committee on Domestic Violence. The committee members are 13. Of that 13, 11 are women. Sadly, this is a very flawed report. To begin with, this report claims that it is a legislative committee made up of citizens. Yeah, they're citizens, all right. Every one of them works for some agency within the state government. They're either in the district attorney's office, the family court, or the sheriff's office. This is not an unbiased report. This is anything but a citizens advisory group. A true citizens advisory group would have citizens outside of the government realm. On page 4 of this report, which is just one of many pages, it clearly states that throughout the report, women will be considered the victims and men will always be considered the offenders. We have already established that gender plays no role in domestic violence, that in fact domestic violence is equally perpetrated by both men and women. This is a federal statistic. Yet this report is based solely on domestic violence against women and helping women only. Unfortunately, when it comes to reporting of domestic violence, women are more likely to report it than men. Why? There's no support for men. If they report domestic violence, it is turned around and they become the one being arrested. Why? Because of reports like this. Here on page 9 we have the goals of the project are to enhance the criminal justice response to domestic violence, to monitor compliance of defendants. The only defendants they're listing are men. Next goal, to increase accountability of batterers and increase safety of women. What about the safety of men? Why does this report not include men as victims? In the third goal, to enhance safety and coordination of services to women. Everything is about punitive damages against the men and what they can do for the women. This in itself makes the entire report flawed. In fact, it clearly states battered women's services. This report, what it does is gives them carte blanche, meaning them being women, to file ex parte hearings and motions to have men thrown in jail. Furthermore, this report makes the men go through supervised visitation, domestic violence programs, everything is pointed at fixing the men. But what about the women? What about the women who file false allegations? There is not a single thing in this report about penalties or sanctions if somebody files a false claim of domestic violence. This report is totally biased and deals only with abuse to women. It does not do anything for men that are abused. Furthermore, this report is claiming that this is all related to our economic, financial situations in this country. Not true. This issue of domestic violence has nothing to do with the economy and everything to do with the way our laws and legislation are written biasly in favor of women, with no penalties and no sanctions for false allegations and false reporting of abuse. Ultimately, every one of the goals of this report is aimed at destroying men. We've already established that domestic violence knows no gender, that it is perpetrated equally by both men and women. There is no equality. The reality is these laws need to be based on the fact that domestic violence knows no gender, knows no type, knows no color. What about the men?